Welcome back to Two Who's Review. I'm Alex,
I'm Fitz.
and we are today joined by, for the first time in a while, I think, Sam.
Yeah. When was the last time I was on? Was that
Th-
when we did Love and Monsters
And
Five
then Five
Doctors,
Doctors,
yeah.
yeah, I
and
think that
Five
might.
Doctors? Yeah,
That is
Wow.
quite a while, actually. I
that
forgot
has
how.
been a hot minute. Yes.
Yeah, Hadley
That was
has
like
kind
that
of
was
been
almost like a year ago, wasn't
almost, yeah. Hadley's been sort of hogging the third mic for a
it?
while. But you're back, and speaking of being back, Doctor Who is back because today
Mm.
we are discussing the first episode proper of Series 14, Space Babies. And with a title like that, you can't go wrong. Or can you? Well,
I
let's
mean,
see. Do we think they went wrong with this one?
not really.
No,
Yeah,
me
I
neither.
don't think so.
It was pretty good. Maybe not perfect, and obviously we'll get into it, but it was still pretty solid.
Well, it's very rare that a first episode of a season is absolutely mind blowing. I think that,
Yeah.
like, in terms of
Yeah.
season openers, this is. It's not. It's. I think you could make the argument it's in the top half of the new season openers. I mean,
I would make the argument that Christmas special notwithstanding, Church on Ruby Road feels more like the opener for this season.
it does, and that's probably why on Disney Plus it is listed
It's
as
just been
episode
included,
one.
yeah.
episode 1. Yeah.
I got really excited when I saw 3 episodes. What's happening?
Like,
This
does feel a lot more like a second adventure,
yeah.
like New Earth or
Yeah.
any of those other examples.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I guess that's been the pattern, really. I mean, even with the podcast, like we basically say that season 3, for example, started with the Runaway Bride, because that's just. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
it fits in my mind, at least.
Yeah, I mean, typically those episodes are sort of considered episode 0 of a production cycle because they tend to be filmed isolated from the rest of the episodes, but for all intents and purposes, they are bundled in with that production block.
I always felt that during the first RTD era that even though they were Christmas specials, they didn't feel distinct from the seasons that they were a part of until like you had that year, like the next Doctor was the first one that felt like this is a special event episode, but even then it's like one of several that are all clumped together.
Maybe that's because all of
that they were like distinct.
Yeah, maybe that's because like pretty much all of RTD's Christmas specials sort of followed on from the previous season almost immediately. So it did just kind of feel like, okay, on to the next thing. With this is kind of the reverse.
Yeah, I say Voyage of the Damned, the Titanic one, feels the most on its own.
Yeah.
Out of any of them, but yeah,
it's just so out there as a premise.
Yeah.
But yeah, Space Babies. It's the first real showcase of Ruby Sunday as a companion. Like she had little moments in Church on Ruby Road, but largely that was his Ncuti Gat was first full venture. With this, Ruby has a bit more to do, and we get to see a bit more of what she's going to bring to the TARDIS team.
Yeah.
So that's what this episode has going for it, as well as just being a return to the wackier side of Doctor Who. I don't think that's unfair to say.
Now, Cuff, I'm going to stop you there. Not because I disagree with anything you're saying, but because while broadly speaking, I'm here today because I really like this episode. More specifically, I'm here because this episode very briefly featured dinosaurs.
Okay, look, it's bordering on like bullying almost, if you put it that way. Like we're only interested in having you on when you have something to say about dinosaurs. You offered this up freely. This was all you.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yes, I figure we may as well get this part out of the way, and then we can talk about the episode proper.
Sure, well, this is
Sure.
basically how the episode begins.
Well, yeah, so it's a perfect place to put it. But here is my amateur expert level assessment of the accuracy of that opening scene. So, first off, 150 million years ago, North America, pretty on point. We have Brachiosaurus.
Mhm.
That's the right range for that, like
Yep.
in terms of time. The Brachiosaurus does look more like a Giraffa Titan. That's pretty consistent with almost every Brachiosaurus in popular culture because of the whole history of how those two species were discovered.
So when you said amateur expert, you were being very humble in that assessment, I would say.
No, I wouldn't say humble. I would just say I am an expert in this at an amateur level. Like
Sure.
I would never like go up to an actual practicing paleontologist or someone who is at least studying to be and say I'm also an expert because I'm autistic. Like but yeah, I think it's fair to say that like on the level of a casual in air quotes enjoyer of this subject matter, I'm somewhat of an expert at that tier.
Yeah, no, I see what you
Um,
mean, for sure.
But anyway, the other big thing I noticed, no grass, which is also accurate. Grass
Yeah.
did not evolve until well after the Mesozoic. But you know what also hadn't evolved yet and wouldn't for another 50 million years?
Is it
Butterflies?
Butterflies.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Where the fuck did that butterfly come from?
The butterfly is the linchpin to the entire series arc. Calling it now. The
Butterfly is
butterfly is
Mrs. Hunt.
important. Oh no.
You know what's... I know you're joking, Sam, but given we're talking about Doctor Who, I think stranger things have happened.
The butterfly
So-
is another of the toy maker's minions.
Yes, yeah.
What if
it's-
Earth is supposed to be lizard people?
Well,
And
they
that
did come
butterfly
first.
going back in time is what changed us all to mammals.
So you're saying that the Silurians lost the planet because of a time-traveling butterfly?
It's possible.
Hmm.
As Fitz says, stranger things have happened in this show.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, that's
And-
funny. That's very, very
Hmm.
funny, but funny as it should
yeah.
be, let's put it that way.
Sure.
Jesus
Anything
Christ.
else, Sam, about that scene?
Well, it was very brief. There wasn't a whole lot to like
Sure.
grab onto and assess the accuracy of, but like, yeah, no grass. Brachiosaurus, pretty accurate. Oh no, I did forget one. That
This is what I was teeing you up
it's
for,
not.
yeah.
Yes, because I mentioned to you guys the other day in person, but it's not in the episode itself, but it is in the behind the scenes. Russell erroneously calls the brachiosaurs Brontosaurus, and although it is now a valid taxon, they're definitely not Brachiosaurus. So that is another mistake made.
Take that, lefties. Russell is destroying the show after all.
We can't have Brontosaurus because of woke.
Oh dear.
So I think that. So the dinosaur scene is clearly in the episode. It's there as a part of let's explain the rules to the newcomers, which is a huge chunk
Yeah.
of the opening act. It's the Doctor rapid firing exposition at Ruby about the rules and about his society and about his backstory, which is I welcome it, especially because this is being marketed as season 1. There are going to be new people, and I've seen a bunch of people who started watching a chunk of Ruby Road, so you do need to explain the rules to them, and it's best to get them out of the way quickly because otherwise you got to drip feed it, and that's weird for the people who've been around a long time.
But at the same time, he's name dropping people like the Rani out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean that's also true.
Yeah. So there's a bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah, but Yeah, it leads to a genuinely quite humorous bit of acting from Millie Gibson, where she becomes a completely different character in Lizard Ruby,
Mm,
which I wasn't expecting. I was just expecting it to be like a cosmetic thing, but they really committed to. Oh God, Ruby's like different now. It
yeah.
was really, and like you could tell like the cadence of her voice changed as well. It was a decent bit of acting on her part.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, your point, like about sort of going through the motions, I suppose, about for introducing new fans to the show. Um, it is necessary, really.
Yeah,
Partly because, as you say, like they're marketing it as a season one, but just generally, it's just good to
yeah.
have a bit of a
Mm.
refresher. One thing that I did notice that was kind of interesting, and I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks this, but and maybe it's just because they're on a space station, but there were certain moments where it almost felt like they were retreading ground from uh the end of the world. Certain
I did feel that at one point when he did the whole "Give me a phone, I'll let you
yeah, yeah,
make
yeah.
calls throughout time and space," but that was really the only time I was like, "This reminds me of that episode
And
specifically."
the end of the world isn't the only time the Doctor's done that for a companion's phone either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it
No, but I get what you mean though.
there's a note I've got written here that talks about that, but we'll get to that later.
Um,
But yeah, there were just some similarities there. But having said that, there are, definite differences. Because the Doctor, he is being a bit mysterious. He's not going into, a lot of detail of his backstory, but he's being definitely more open than Christopher Eccleston was way back when. So,
Mm.
yeah, that's an interesting change.
and like while we're on that topic, like Shitty Gut was absolutely nailing this role. I'm sorry, like he is
Yeah.
just doing
Yeah.
such a great job, and it goes into like because I think we talked about briefly in the last couple of times we discussed this character. This is the healthy Doctor in that he's been
Mm,
through therapy now. He's lived decades as the 14th Doctor and been through therapy, and then jumps back to the 15th through Bi-Generation.
Yeah.
So this is like, but and even when he's explaining it to Ruby, like the you can tell that those things still happen to him and they still have an impact, but he's not like brooding about them anymore, and
Yeah.
he's not closing up like previous Doctors would have. Like he's still a little bit held back, but like he's a bit more open now, and that's really really cool to see, honestly.
mm. I think, well, no, a couple things. First off, yes, Ncuti Gatwa's performance is really, really looking strong, and certainly, if I've ever had issues with the episodes he's been in, it's not because of his performance. It's because of the writing. The issues are few and far between, but it's because of the writing, not the performance. He's doing a really marvelous job. On your point about this is the therapized Doctor. This is the Doctor that has, um, you know, uh, gone through the slings and arrows of dealing with his problems.
Mm.
Um, I do certainly think that's true. Um, you can see hints of the trauma because, let's be honest, with all the things the Doctor's been through, you would inevitably get trauma from that because
Yeah,
they have a
Mm.
really full-on life. Um, but I think there are like small hints of sort of the darkness. I'll be interested
mm.
to see whether that's confronted and if so, how much. But it is still very good to see that this is a departure in so much as that RTD with the writing and Ncuti Gatwa with his performance are making something quite new out of this Doctor. It's still like Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor is still the Doctor, and you really feel that. But Ncuti Gatwa was making it his own, which is really quite impressive. Um, but I guess it fits with a very, let's be honest, pretty bold new directions the show's going in.
And even with all that, like
Mm.
I briefly mentioned it to you the other day, I think, Fitz, but and we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but it's the moment when the Doctor has to like really reckon with, why was I scared of that? I don't get scared. When I see something new, I'm fascinated. And I watched that and I went, holy, is this an episode of Doctor Who where the Doctor is scared and they're like actually addressing that it is weird for that to happen? Unlike when Jodie Whittaker would get scared at social interactions or someone pointing a gun. Like, this is refreshing. It's so great to see a showrunner who understands the character and understands that. And we've seen that in the past as well with David Tennant and the Werewolf, Matt Smith and the Minotaur. Like, any new thing, he's like, oh my god, this is incredible. I want to know more about you.
Yeah.
But with this, it was actually noteworthy that he was scared, and it became part of the plot. It's such good writing.
Well, it's even a contrast a little bit with the Goblins, where even in the most sort of intense moments, the Doctor's still weirdly fascinated to an almost, like, I guess, uncomfortable degree, I suppose. Like, they're in like the thick of danger, but the Doctor's like, oh, but look at this amazing technology. But that does fit. That fits with the Doctor's characterization throughout the whole show.
Yeah.
But as you say, Cuff, to see that sort of confronted is an interesting departure. Yeah. In terms of how it was integrated into the episode, I'm not sure if I love it as much as you do, Cuff, and we'll get into it later on, but it is still very encouraging to see that RTD is willing to sort of take that risk and take it into a different place, which is kind of great.
But this brings us into the actual premise of the episode, which is that there is a spaceship being manned, run,
A
and
space
controlled.
station.
Yeah,
Specifically a space
It is a
station.
space station. A space station that is being operated by intelligent talking babies. It's certainly a concept, and it's one that's been getting a few different divides online. I've noticed a lot of people just haven't been able to look past the absurd premise and have just gone bad episode, which I think is a bit disappointing, because like there is quite a lot of nuance and depth in here when you can look past it. Obviously, if it's something that you physically can't like, if it doesn't get past your personal sensibilities, fine, like, and that's okay. But I think it's worth acknowledging when that's an internal flaw and not an episodic flaw. Because if and we'll bring it up to next time with Devil's Court as well, but I've seen it a bunch of times when, like, as an example, and I don't think it happens. Well, here we go. One that pertains to me specifically that neither of you will understand is when the CW series The Flash did a musical episode, and
Right.
a lot of people were like, "I don't like musicals, therefore this episode is bad." And to that I say, no, you don't like musicals, and therefore this episode wasn't for you. There is a difference.
I mean, obviously I don't know about that specific example, but Star Trek Strange New Worlds, their most recent season, or did the same thing. They had a musical episode, and they're like, "Why is this? There's a space anomaly that's shooting musical energy into the fucking universe." So everyone's breaking out into song. And yeah, similarly, a lot of people were like, "We don't like seeing Klingons do fucking rap," and you're like, "Okay, well that's you."
Yeah.
Watch
sorry,
the other episodes where they're
just-
not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that just gave it like that's the weirdest image of
It is an
Klingon
interesting mental
rap.
image, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a Trekkie, but like that's just funny to me. Anyway, yeah, look, I'll be not completely, but slight devil's advocate in saying that I can understand that sort of fear or frustration where an episode is doing something that seems way beyond the purview of the show that it's fitting into. I'm not sure exactly where that comes from with me. I mean, I know I've had issues with a lot of decisions made in Doctor Who, even if more objectively, a lot of people would disagree with me. But I can sort of understand that instinct. And to be fair, when I did watch this episode first off, I did think, I don't know, Russell, this is getting really, really silly. Are we, how far can we push this? But I did watch the episode again today, and I have, a considerably different outlook on it now. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it is very, very silly. Like, there are a lot of elements that are quite ridiculous, but there are a lot of, I think, really interesting and effective moving parts that should be addressed with it. So first off, given how wacky a lot of the premises are in this story, not just the concept, but some of the other like smaller ideas in it, given how strange they are, it works way better than it should.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like with anything like this, it's not just worth saying, what is this? It's worth saying, why is this? And how effective is this?
Yeah, for sure. It's not just a simple surface level, oh, this is doing something different, get it away, I don't like it. No. There's got to be more than that. So that's one thing to point out. Another thing to point out is there is, let's be honest, a lot of silliness, not just in Doctor Who, well, obviously in Doctor Who, but specifically in the RTD era. And I have to say, if you compare this story to stuff like Love and Monsters or even Alien to London World War III, the RTD seems to be marrying the wacky and silly concepts with really solid storytelling and a sense of genuine pathos in a much more cohesive way than in those other episodes. I think it should be said. I mean, compared to Love and Monsters especially, the fact that we go from woman who has a drug-addicted daughter to David Kaye running around in that ridiculous costume, I mean, so the
Peter
fact
Kay.
that Peter Kay, excuse me.
David Kaye was Beast Wars Megatron.
Wait, seriously? Oh no, right. Sorry, no. Yeah. No, sorry, I just got confused there. Anyway,
confused them again in your head. Didn't
yeah,
you?
I did.
Yeah.
The point is,
now
yeah,
I'm on Peter Kay as Megatron now. That's something I wanted to do.
I mean,
rise, my Decepticon warriors.
Oh,
no, you know what?
Jesus.
Peter Kay for the 16th Doctor. I don't care that they've already been absorbed.
Oh dear. Anyway, yeah. The point is, it's mixing in the silliness and the seriousness a lot more cohesively than I think a lot of RTD's previous scripts have. And I think the biggest thing for me that sort of helped win me over with the episode was I look at Doctor Who generally, and the way I see it is Doctor Who has always been quite a sort of scrappy underdog show, a show that not everybody takes seriously. And I think because of how wacky it is, it's very easy to like just make fun of it and say, "Oh, that's just wacky, dumb sci-fi stuff for kids." Who cares? But if you really watch it and you sort of open up your hearts, so to speak, to what it's trying to do, there's some real magic in it. And we've seen that both in classic and revival stories. Even in the episodes where the wackiness and the seriousness isn't quite melding together, there's real, genuine, magic. And once I sort of thought that, I realized, oh, yeah, you know what, I'm going to give this a real go. I'm not just going to say, oh, haha, dumb, babies in space. No, there's the RTD's trying to actually do something here. And once I did that, I'm like, oh, there's actually quite a lot of really pretty good stuff in here. May not be a perfect episode, but it's pretty solid.
Well, I think the thing is that silly concepts usually work when they're done earnestly.
Yes.
Like we have a good example of this in this episode with the bogeyman is literally made out of snot and boogers.
Yeah.
But like, as much as that's a like, oh, gross toilet humor for little kids, it's like it is internally consistent with the logic of this narrative. You have a computer; it does things literally. Or like when they're like I've seen some people being like, really, it's powered by baby nappies. I'm like, well, yeah. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure,
mean,
like that makes sense. Methane
Yeah.
is used as fuel sometimes.
Um,
Shit is used as fuel sometimes.
I mean, I think you
If
you
that's
said
what it's something you have a supply of, sure, you're going to use it. If it's a little funny as well, because haha, baby nappies are full of poo poo, then it works in both respects.
Yeah.
I think you pointed out, Sam, to Cuff and I privately, that if there's any considerable flaws with the ending, it's that it feels a little bit rushed, and it does a little bit, but that's not. But
Yeah,
that's sort of a separate issue from the silliness.
yeah,
It
no, like
still works.
I think if we're going to jump ahead to that, I think because I did watch the episode a second time,
Hmm.
a bit before we started recording,
Mhm.
and I do still think that everyone 180ing on, well, actually no, the boogeyman is like a part of the family,
Mm.
like it was a very sudden switch in everyone being
Yeah.
like, okay, now we're like, maybe if it was just the Doctor and Ruby who were like, no, no,
Insane.
he's good, but having all of the babies just instantly be on board as well
Yeah.
without that context,
Yeah.
it does feel a little rushed.
Yeah,
That
I'd
being
agree.
said, um, it is thematically consistent with everything else that was happening in the episode enough that I don't really mind it. I was just like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. And consistent
Um,
even with this interpretation of the Doctor, because there are, a number of moments where previous Doctors can be very unforgiving. Even if we look past the really shitty things that the Sixth Doctor did, for example, the first David Tennant episode culminates with him saying, no second chances. Not that that's really expanded on, but the point is there's a context there. So having the Doctor be more, maybe not so much forgiving, but open to acceptance, I guess.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Well, I think
Because
it's
that's who
also
this Doctor is, which is kind of great.
it also
Um,
comes back to and it's something that I think we've touched on briefly, but Russell has once again taken control of the show when the Doctor is canonically the last of their kind, and
yeah.
it's happened twice now for two different reasons. One of which was justified, one of which was rushed and botched.
Yeah.
But like I think that, and this is almost certainly the first time that we've seen the Doctor post the Master genocide in Gallifrey really reckon with it, which is again
Yeah.
just such a misstep because that happened 4 years ago.
Yeah. And like with the
Mm.
Bogeyman, I was thinking on that second watch as well. Even if it is like a dangerous creature,
Mm.
it's very consistent for the Doctor to be like,
Yeah,
well, yeah, it's dangerous, but don't fucking
it's
kill it.
it's unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the Star Trek well again, and you can't stop me.
Sure.
But it reminds
I
me
can, I
of
can, I can easily just mute you, but go ahead.
in TNG there was this recurring um, villain, air quotes, called the Crystalline Entity,
Mm.
which is just this giant, like living crystal that floats around in space, finds planets, and just like destroys them to get energy. And every time it showed up, they were like, "Oh shit, it's the Crystalline Entity. We better just get the fuck out of its way." And that sort of like recurring thing culminates in this episode where there's this woman who is a survivor of a planet that the Crystalline Entity attacked, and she's like, "Okay, well, when are we going to fucking kill it?" And Picard's like, sperm whales eat thousands of krill in the ocean every day, but we don't murder them because, like, they're not committing genocide. They're just eating. We don't have the right to say, well, this thing doing what it needs to do to live, or in this case, doing what it is specifically designed to do for the mental enrichment of the space babies. Like, it can't be faulted for that, even
Yeah.
if you don't have the full context of what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, like in
100%,
that
yeah.
sense, it's very consistent for the Doctor to be like, no, 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 we like the bogeyman, even if we are scared of it.
Yeah.
No, that's 100%. I want to quickly double back to the babies themselves.
Sure.
Because while I've been saying, the concept is silly, but look past it. One thing that is very difficult for me to ignore is the less than stellar CGI that is their
Yeah.
talking mouths.
Yeah, that was my other big, like, immediately I was like, oh, that's a little rough.
It immediately brought me back to mid 2000s films starring live action animals where they would superimpose talking mouths on them afterwards, and it's always so noticeable.
I think
It's
there
very
were
similar to
some
that.
shots that looked better than others.
No, there were, yeah.
Like, I think
And
when Eric is down in the tunnels, talk about how he's like, I'm brave and I'm gonna fight it off. That one didn't look too bad.
well, that's because those areas are less lit, and so it's
Yeah,
easier to hide the flaws.
I do think uh there may be a bit of a um
Uncanny Valley.
I was about to say uncanny valley, but I feel like that might be like too extreme of a word. But like the same concept of like you're not used to seeing babies at this stage talk like that. So even if the animation was smoother or like less noticeable, I guess. Um,
I'm wondering if they couldn't have just pulled a Doug from Up and given them all like little
I was
computer
thinking the
things
same
that speak
thing.
on their
Yeah,
behalf.
just
Oh,
then.
like a psychic communicator
It's like
thingy.
a thought translator sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because like it does is it explained in the episode why they're because like we know why they're intelligent. It's because they've been living on this space station for all this time. But
Yeah.
is it explained why they're still very much baby throats and vocal cords and voice boxes are able to produce words consistent with that of a 7-year-old?
I mean, I think it's just kind of one of those things where it's just like this is the premise.
Mm.
Sure.
So you just kind of have to accept certain things at face value.
That reminds me, and I may just have not have either been paying attention or I missed something here, but was there any like specific explanation as to why the babies like didn't grow up? Was it just that the parthenogenesis technology malfunctioned? Is that the idea, or
I think it was explicitly stated, but I think it was just a sort of general implication that because they were left behind, the process didn't continue in the way it's supposed to,
yeah? Because I
and
figured,
so they ended up stunted.
yeah. Because if they've been grown through like parthenogenesis technology, yeah, something happened that made them not
Is
grow up, I suppose.
which is one of a few different like symbolic and thematic elements of the story that I think is because I don't think I don't think it's unfair to say that it's trying to say a few different things at the same time, and it's not really giving any of them too much focus, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because the episode's sort of designed to be like a sort of like it effectively is a children's story in space. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So when
Alien. It's Alien,
yeah.
and it's Alien with babies.
So when it touches on things like, you know, corporations shutting down branches with no thought to the workers or refugees or anything like that, it's not
Or we
the
can't
point of the episode.
we can't kill an unborn baby, but once the baby is
Mm.
born, fuck it, we don't give a shit.
Holy
Yeah.
shit! Why didn't I think of that? God
Yeah,
damn!
no.
That moment was.
First time I watched it, I said out loud, "I wonder what that could be allegorical for."
I was pretty shocked by that moment and how bold it was, and it's great.
And how much of a like hand wave it is. It's just like, no, yeah, absolutely. A corporation would 100% be like, well, abortion bad, but we can't pay to keep the babies alive and
Makes
healthy.
Or
makes
even
That
some
would cost
governments. I
money.
think that even some governments. I think that was the implication. The government was just like, yeah, that we
Yeah.
have to.
Well, it reminded me of this old George Carlin bit where he was like pro-life people aren't pro-life. They're
Yep.
anti-woman because the
Yep.
only thing they care about is the unborn. Once
Yep.
you're born, nothing.
They don't give a
Because if
shit.
they were pro-life, they would be, advocating for better resources for single parents, like
Yep.
food stamps, like
Mhm.
ways to help underprivileged families and children get through life.
Yeah.
But
I
they don't.
can't believe that. This is blowing my mind. It makes so much more sense now why all the workers on the space station were like, "I'm leaving, but fuck you."
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
Like-
honestly for the first episode back, that is incredibly brave.
Yeah. And
Mm.
that's another thing actually that I've basically written it down here in my notes, but that fits into the fact that this is a very bold episode. The very least that you can say, no, what can be said rather about this new RTD era is it's bold. It's definitely not playing it safe, and on that basis alone, it I think deserves applause because.
Well, I think I would modify that statement and say it's not playing it safe with certain audiences.
Yes.
Well, yes, I was going to say because this might
who
be
can go fuck themselves anyway.
this might be part of the reason I've seen heaps of people not heaps of people, but a certain subset of people online going, "Well, this is the end of Doctor Who. It's over now," or like these episodes are these are the worst episodes of Doctor Who ever, or and this is a bit.
Why is the black girl baby the captain?
Okay, I haven't seen that specifically, but
no, but I guess just
yeah,
you know the argument.
No,
you
I
can
know
just,
exactly what you mean.
Play it automatically in your head.
No,
what I have seen
the same shit they bring up every fucking time.
It's a bit unrelated, but I did see someone go, Russell forgot to give the Doctor and Ruby personalities, which
that's not true.
Clearly, that's not true.
No, I mean the worst thing that I would say about their characterizations, and it's not even really an issue. At the moment, they seem very similar in personality, and I'm not sure like what that will mean for their character growth, but we're only a few episodes in.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind that because it does remind me of like the fact that they are just purely good friends and there's not a hint of romance involved. Well done,
Yeah,
Russell.
I appreciate
It's giving
that.
it's giving me vibes of the Doctor and Donna, but obviously they were a bit more argumentative. It makes me
I think it's like the 10 and Donna and 14 and Donna, like there's also like a fairly considerable generational gap between the two examples.
Yes.
So like it's a similar dynamic, but that is Doctor and Donna, that's like your Gen X's, and then these are the millennials, the Gen Z's take on that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, it makes me excited for the moment when they butt heads for the first time. Because I think that's going to be a big moment. But back to what we were saying about the online reaction, like I hate to generalize about people's opinions because we were speaking about this the other day as well. At the end of the day, your opinion is your own, and I can't tell you you're wrong for having it. But how many of those people do you think had already made up their minds before watching these episodes?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
It's like
I hate to generalize, but we're all generalizing.
Like it doesn't matter. Yeah, it never matters what the actual content is. It matters that the content contains themes or ideas or people that don't fit the narrative that they want to see.
Yeah, I mean, on the issue of the Doctor and Ruby having unique personalities, as I said, Ncuti Gatwa is clearly doing something really interesting and unique, and in combination with RTD's writing, he's sort of making this character his own. There's that one line, which did make me laugh the first time, where the Doctor just says, "Most of the universe is knackered, babes," and I just thought,
which is still doing way more to acknowledge the outcome of Flux than anything Chibnall did, if that is in fact what that was.
I mean, but it's such a unique thing. I mean, unique to Ncuti Gatwa's performance specifically, because I strongly suspect that he improvised that line. But he does it with... Sorry.
Yeah.
At the very least, the babes at the end might not have been scripted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, like, it feels very unique to him there's clearly a personality coming through here that has been thought through by both writer and performer. So the idea that these characters don't have personalities is ridiculous. Ncuti Gatwa really has come bursting out of the gate with a very confident interpretation of the Doctor, and it's really, really quite wonderful to see.
I don't remember if I mentioned this on Church on Ruby Road, but like even some of our favorite Doctors weren't this confident in the role until like their second season. Like I've mentioned it before, but Matt Smith's performance improves a lot in his second season. Capaldi's a bit of a different beast because his character completely switched up entirely in his second season.
Yeah.
But like even David Tennant, with a lot of his more memorable personality traits and quirks, they tended to arise after his first season. I'm thinking on it now, like, this is, as first impressions go, this is fucking great.
I think I'd have to agree. Even comparing to some classic Doctors, I know that Sylvester McCoy, for example, the personality he develops, during the Cartmel Master Plan era is quite different to how he is at the beginning. Like in terms of like the level of confidence, I wonder, this might be a bit of a big call, but I wonder if we've actually seen a out of the gate performance this confident since Tom Baker, for example, because Tom Baker was very much Tom Baker, like from day one.
I agree, but I have to give Eccleston some credit. Like, like in not just with like, I mean, it's a different story because he didn't get a second season, so we have no idea how his performance would have changed. But
he also didn't technically have to come off the coattails of something before.
Well, that's true, but he also had like the pressure of being like, if this fails, you've killed the show. Like we're coming back after 9 years. You need to stick the landing, and he did not waver.
At least purely in terms of characterization. Like it would have been very much like, we know what we're doing here because this is the starting point, and
totally.
There's enough of a unseen gap at the time, at least, between anything that came before that we're not beholden to following up. Like,
I agree.
Like Eccleston, like no one said to Eccleston is like, okay, well, remember what Paul McGann did, and try and make a transitionary period. Whereas like, no, they're just like, no, you're the Doctor. We're just going to figure out what your take on the Doctor is and just go.
Yeah, remember, Chris, the last story was Scream of the Shalka, so you've got really big shoes to fill.
Back to space.
But no, you're right though, Cuff. He did have a very quite a confident performance, and if there was any sort of reserved quality with the Doctor, that's mostly with the writing, and that's mainly because of the trauma of the Time War. Still, even with that, I'd say, I don't know if I could definitively say, whether Ncuti Gatwa's performance is as confident as Tom Baker's was back in '74, but I think it gets close, which is really kind of great.
The episode gets a lot of good use out of the nanny's self-censoring feature.
Yeah.
And also, like, a rare instance of the Doctor going to swear and then realizing he's in the company of babies, which is interesting to see.
There were a couple of moments where the Doctor was like, oh, that's right, I'm surrounded by babies. And he's just like, look at the bogeyman, huh? Oh, right, yeah, no, okay.
No. No. Space babies.
Space babies.
Yeah, well, I have to admit, during those scenes, they feel like very Russell T Davies jokes. I don't. Maybe that sounds weird, but I feel like I've seen jokes like that before in the Russell T Davies era. But the other thing is, they feel like very mid-2000s jokes. I know. Maybe that's just me, and it's not a bad thing. It doesn't really harm the episode in any way. But that feels like a joke you would have hear in like a sitcom from the mid-2000s, even like a Disney sitcom that they would have aired back then. It's just funny.
Yeah. And speaking of the nanny, there's a whole other character there. This hidden steward to the babies, and her role in the episode is interesting.
Yeah.
I liked her. I liked how they handled her.
Yeah.
I do like that they ask the most obvious question is just like why are you just down the hall from them but pretending you don't exist, and she's like,
Yeah.
this is gonna end badly for everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get
attached.
Yeah. And I think given that she's not featured for a long time in the story, she's given a pretty remarkable amount of depth when she just sort of bursts
Yeah.
into tears when she realizes what she almost did. That's got a lot of power to it, especially in context with the rest of the episode and its themes. So, I think that's worth praising in and itself. But yeah, she's still a pretty good character, I think, and a lot more depth than a character who has that amount of screen time would normally get, even in other Doctor Who episodes.
Well, especially recently, right? Because
but like
I hate to keep coming back to the Chibnall era, but like, how many of Chibnall's side characters were given this much depth? Like Professor Jericho, and that's it.
And even then, he had like several episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, she was a pretty good character, I thought. Yeah, just
I want to talk
interesting.
about perhaps one of the more interesting scenes to talk about in this, and that's snowing in the spaceship. When
Yes.
the Doctor gets a glimpse of Ruby's parent dropping her off, and it's a different memory than when he went back and saw it the first time. And then it starts physically snowing in the space station. At first, we're led to believe it's a part of like some kind of memory thing or part of the space station potentially, I think. But then it starts snowing in the TARDIS later, so that's probably not what's going on.
Yeah.
Any ideas what this could
you guys will get to it later, but we also see snow at one point in Devil's Court, so like it's clearly going to be a recurring thing throughout the season, that anytime there's some like weird shit going on around Ruby, we'll see the snow, and that'll be the warning, like,
yeah,
we're gonna
I mean, they're clearly setting this up to be a big thing
yeah.
surrounding Ruby and her characterization and her character arc. It also does help with the world building in that we are living in a post Toymaker era at this point, so that the supernatural and sort of universe bending qualities that we're seeing in the show make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Doctor, it's so funny, but there are a number of moments, I think, in this episode and also in the Devil's Cord, where the Doctor is like when he talks about the snow, saying, "Oh, that's never happened before," he's remarkably blasé about that. And there's another instance which we'll talk about in the Devil's Cord where he's like that as well. And I'm like, that is a bit strange, but maybe that is just a symbol that the Doctor's just accepted. Yeah, well, as he says, the universe is knackered, babes. So,
but also, I think if you've like lived for 2,000 years, I think anything new, it wouldn't be, oh, whoa, that's new. It would be something new, neat.
Yeah, because I think,
and I think it can be a bit of that, but it could also be a bit of I am downplaying how weird this is so that I don't freak everyone else out around.
That is a very big possibility, because he is hiding in some way that he suspects something is up with Ruby. It reminds me of, and I'm scared of this.
Girl?
Well, that, but also Amy's pregnancy in season 6.
Yeah,
that's a very similar thing with the DNA scan. And in general, like when Moffat has attempted these, the series arc is revolving around the companion being more than just a regular person arcs. they haven't always stuck the landing amazingly well. So I
Mm.
am a little bit nervous that Russell T Davies is doing this with Ruby now. I have a little bit more faith that he can do it well, but I am a bit tentative. Like, we'll get to
Well,
the predictions in a sec, but I was really championing for there's nothing particularly special about Ruby. This is just a thing that happened to her, and maybe there's the circumstances surrounding that are special, but it's not her
I mean,
inherently.
it could still be that.
It could still be that, but the fact that it is like the fact that we've set up this the DNA scan is very unlikely that the payoff for this is going to be, oh, you're normal.
Yeah, and I sort of raised these issues as well with the with our predictions video. I too am worried about the the sort of almost chosen one quality that Ruby seems to be foreshadowed as having. And I, for a bit more personal reasons than you, Cuff, yes, I have a lot of issues with those sort of story arcs in when I've seen them in the Moffat era, and I do frankly trust RTD more to stick the landing with them, but it is always still a concern because I think chosen one sort of stories are very, very easy to mess up. But there's
Like the timeless child.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true though. But I think like there's just it really does feel like they're foreshadowing something with this character, but there's just so little information at this point that we're not really going to know how it's going to
Mm.
evolve until we see more of it. I will say though, on the point of the Doctor sort of almost rationalizing or downplaying some of the danger. There's even really small moments, like when the Doctor says, "Oh yeah, like I pressed the butterfly compensation switch." Like that seems like a phony joke idea, um, but like it feels like the Doctor's lying for dramatic effect, and I think it speaks to the fact that there's still some sort of hidden layers and mysteries, like sort of mysteries that the Doctor is deliberately keeping close to the chest, and I'm actually pretty excited to see that explored further.
So speaking of mysteries that are being drip fed so far, I don't know if you guys have caught wind of this, but this is something I noticed when looking at people's reactions on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send a screenshot to our little group chat.
Okay.
Sure.
This better be interesting because you're going to have a mammoth of a time explaining this to the audio-only audience.
Oh,
So
okay.
the tweet
That is
is
very interesting.
so I'll explain for the audio only people, for video people, Cuff. I'm sure you can just pop it up on the screen. But the tweet
Do I have
is, oh god, oh baby, you have to edit one picture in for fucking 2 minutes.
I know.
So the tweet is 4 images of random background characters who have shown up in episodes since RTD took the reins again, and they're all played by the same actress. They're all incomplete. Like one, I think the first one is with Isaac Newton at the beginning of Wild Blue Yonder. The bottom left, she's one of the crew members in this episode saying, I'm logging off, but I don't like that this is going down. I'm not 100% sure where the other two have come from. One, she looks
right
like a...
is from the cafeteria in the recording studio.
Of
yes,
of
so
the
it
Devil's
is
Court.
Devil's
And
Court.
it,
I think top right might be at like the club, one of the clubs that Ruby was
I
performing
think it
at
is.
in
I think it
Church
is.
and
Yeah.
Ruby
Looks
Road.
like it.
I couldn't find it again when I was looking for it just now, but I am pretty sure I saw a tweet that had even more examples of her propping up in background. So like that's clearly something. I've got no fucking idea what.
I can't find her IMDb credit.
I don't think she's been credited in any of the episodes,
That's
which is
interesting.
another
Right.
like, ooh,
Hmm.
this is something.
Mm.
What does this mean?
I think you might be right, Sam. I think
Yeah.
this has to be heading somewhere. Um,
Well,
I
I'm
mean, I
gonna
know,
especially keep an eye out for her in future episodes now, because
yeah, I'm
that
definitely
is
Because
going to be
like
tuning
this
in.
very
isn't seeing the same extra in a crowd scene in like
no,
two
no, no.
different spots in the episode where like logically they shouldn't be there. Like this is very clearly a deliberate, we keep bringing this actress back
Mm.
to play random background players,
Maybe
but
it's a
they're
James.
just prominent enough that they're recognizable as the same actor.
Maybe it's a James Gunn, Nathan Fillion, Michael Rooker thing.
Maybe she's a Time Lord.
Hmm.
I
If
mean,
she's cropping
Well,
up
we
in
did
all
get
the.
the
maybe
Ronnie. We did
she's
get
the
the Ronnie
Ronnie.
name
Yeah.
drop. Yeah,
I was
there we
going to
go.
say, yeah, maybe she's the Ronnie.
Well, let's before we do our final ratings for this episode, let's actually look back at our predictions and let's see if there's anything we can tick off or anything we can definitively cross off the list. For this episode specifically, I don't think there's anything on my list that I can straight up confirm or deny. Fitz, you've got a couple. Reptile Ruby is the full premise of an episode. That's a hard pass on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's
Although
600 points down the drain.
there was another moment in the behind the scenes where Russell joked that he would like to do a spin-off about the reptile
Well,
timeline
that's
Ruby.
irrelevant to Series 14, so I
Yeah.
will be denying those points and shut up.
Yeah, that's fair.
What is looking a bit better for you, Fitz? And I've sort of like uh what's the word? I've paraphrased a lot of the predictions you wrote down. Ruby is a messianic figure key to saving the universe.
Yeah.
Not looking too unlikely.
Yeah, they are really sort of flagging it, to a surprising degree. So, as I said, I'm nervous about that. Though I do trust RTD to, make it come together. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Um,
Hmm.
we didn't discuss this. But Sam, do you want to give a overarching Series 14 prediction just to see if you can, with one prediction, somehow get more points than either of us?
Okay. Well, I did tell you, Cuff, my like not prediction, but like hope because it would be funny, is that I think the funniest possible thing they could do to resolve the Mrs. Flood teaser at the end of Church on Ruby Road is like every now and then she'll just keep cropping up and doing a little like, ooh, she knows more than she's letting on. And then when she's finally confronted about it, they're like, wow, how do you know what a TARDIS is? Why do you know what Time Lords are? And her answer is just like, because I've lived in England in the last 20 years where we get fucking invaded by cubes and mummies and Sontarans every 5 goddamn months. So I need to pay attention to this shit because if I don't, I might die. Excuse me for actually like bothering to learn about this crap.
And that would actually be consistent with her characterization of being needlessly rude to a person of color in the specials.
But like overall predictions for where this shit's gonna go. I don't know. I think with the revelation that this woman keeps cropping up in random background roles as if she is following either the Doctor or Ruby. More likely the Doctor if she showed up in the Isaac Newton scene. She will in some way play a part in whatever the big final reveal is surrounding Ruby and like well, the legend of Ruby Sunday and what that's all about. she will be a player in that. Maybe not a major player. Like I'm not expecting we go back there and the person that left Ruby pulls the hood down and it's her. That might be a bit too extreme.
Sure.
But
Mm.
she like we say, she's clearly showing up again and again for a reason.
Yeah.
What that reason is, I can't say, but it will most likely come up in the finale of the season.
Yeah.
Seems pretty safe.
I
Yeah.
think I may have said, oh, maybe I didn't. I can't remember. But I suspected that the Mrs. Flood will be like more of a long-term thing. But like if she shows up at the end of the season, that would also make sense.
Well, I also think Mrs. Flood breaks the fourth wall at the end of that episode.
Yeah.
So whether that's just like a stylistic choice for like a gag slash teaser to end the episode on, or if it's like an actual like we're playing a bit
Well-
more loosey goosey with the fourth wall, and we get other moments of that in the next episode.
Well, I was going to
as well,
say, yeah,
because
if you
of
look at it-
all the toy maker repercussions.
Yeah, because if we look at it from an in-universe perspective, characters that are powerful enough to break the fourth wall are the Doctor, who obviously,
Yeah.
Maestro, who has amazing reality powers, and Mrs. Flood.
Yeah.
So you could make the reasonable argument that she is more powerful than she appears to be.
I also think
sure.
with a name like Mrs. Flood, like that's got to play some thematic element.
I can't remember if I brought this up last time, but I think there were some people who were speculating about flood. That's a water thing. Could it be one of the ponds or perhaps a river in the future? And to them I say, no, we've seen their stories end.
No,
they do not
no.
become Mrs. Flood, you idiots.
No, I'm thinking more along the lines of like the biblical flood and
Yeah.
Noah's Ark or something like
right,
that.
Yeah. That would that would track, I think.
Yeah, I could see that happening as well.
Yeah. Certainly, like with a name that is that strange. It's got to be pointing towards something.
And we'll see how that plays out in future weeks. But for now, do we feel ready to give Space Babies a score?
I think so.
I think so. I don't know if there's much else to mention. I did say that the ending, we had the montage where the Doctor is remembering all the things that he said when he's looking at the bogeyman. I felt having that amount of clips was slightly too much. There was part of me that wanted it to be pared back just slightly, just to make it a bit more subtle, but it's not. Like, it certainly doesn't really hurt the episode. It's just something I thought, oh, could they have done it a different way, I guess.
I mean, my thing is, if you're going to use clips, you might as well use as many as you can, because that's like, it's sort of like that rapid fire thought process in those moments where the Doctor's trying to make a decision.
Yeah.
Where he's like weighing up everything, weighing up all the evidence, and also it's just a clever way for the writer to go, see, this was what it's all been leading towards.
Yeah, I think less than paring it back, which could also work. I'm not going to say it won't. But like I felt like the nobody grows up wrong line was like it felt kind of absent from that. And like I'm willing to admit that may be biased because like that line made me cry a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say we haven't actually addressed that yet. Another part of the reason you wanted to do this episode. Did you want to talk?
Yeah,
about it?
no. Well, it's just like like I said, broadly speaking, I really liked it, but like that moment in particular, where I was like, as I'm watching the episode, and Eric first comes in for the first time, he starts speaking. I'm like, haha, this is like classic bad movie baby geniuses. And then almost immediately we're like, these babies have never once been hugged in their life. And they're just like, there's that cathartic release as like Ruby picks them up and the doctor picks them up one by one and like hugs them for the first time. And they start like to cry because they haven't had that for 6 fucking years. And then the whole bit with between Poppy and the doctor where she's like, are we wrong? We're not supposed to be like that. And he said, no. And like, that's very, very blatant. Like, I wouldn't say blatantly, but like, obviously, the subtext of that is like,
Yeah.
hey, race, gender, identity, like,
Yeah.
none of that. You are who you are supposed to be. And that's awesome. That's amazing. That's what makes you special and unique. And that like, I'm kind of in two minds about it because on the one hand, because that specific scene resonated so strongly, I'm fine with it being its own self-contained thing. But it at the same time, it's also very clearly part of that thematic thing that culminates in the scene where they save the bogeyman. And like, it feels like it's absent when it shouldn't be. But yeah, I like the episode in general. I loved that scene and that exchange between Poppy and the Doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
I am going to give Space Babies a 7.
Yeah, sorry, one more tiny thing. Giving Ruby her own TARDIS key. That seems interesting to me. Is that a new concept? Because I
Nope.
don't remember that happening with...
Absolutely not. Every single companion Bill definitely. I don't know if Bill got a key, but like giving a companion a key was a huge thing. We've seen Martha get a key recently. Like
this
Right.
might be the earliest it's happened from memory.
Oh no, you're forgetting that the Doctor gives Victorian era Clara a key almost fucking instantly.
I don't think that
before she's a companion. And it's only done to make the emotional impact of her death just a little bit more, which Snowman is a bad episode. Don't watch it. But
yeah, that's one of those episodes that no one likes, isn't it?
I don't know about no one, but it's not looked upon fondly.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more in the category of like really forgettable, which a lot of episodes in that season are because of its release structure being as fucked up and weird as it was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
With all that said, yeah, I think I'm going to give this a 7 too. Maybe some flaws here and there. Despite how wacky it is, it's not the most we need to be. And for what it does pretty darn well. And certainly given how silly a lot of the ideas are, at the very least, God, this could have been so much worse. So yeah, a solid episode, I thought.
And Sam?
I'm going to give it an 8 with a YMS Adams style clarification of it's closer to a 7 than a 9.
Sure.
But 8.
Yep, cool.
Sure, fair enough.
All right, so that's the first episode of Series 14 in the books. If you're listening to this episode close to the time of its upload, the next episode, The Devil's Chord, should already be up. We're going to try and get these up fairly regularly as the episode's released. Really looking forward to this journey. It's been some time since I saw a new episode of Doctor Who, at least in a regular series, and went, hell yeah, I'm looking forward to where this goes. And Sam, anything you would like to plug in this moment?
Well, plug. Jesus. I mean, not really. You guys have already talked about Dracula, and by the time this goes up, it's probably too late for anyone listening to.
For us, this is going up tomorrow. So
okay, so well, yeah. I'm also in Dracula. Something that they forgot to mention last time.
We did, yeah.
We did.
That's fair.
But yeah, I guess anyone listening to this who hasn't seen it already and is able to because you live in the area, there's 2 more chances to do that.
Yep, Friday the 17th and Saturday the 18th of May, 7 p.m. start at the second smallest theater in Gwynville. That was mean to say. I shouldn't have phrased it like that, but it's what I've done. Adam's not going to listen to this. It doesn't matter what I say.
Yeah.
But like I said, next time we'll be reviewing The Devil's Chord. But until then, I'm Alex.
I'm Fitz.
And I'm Sam.
And babies. I should just stop like teeing up a humorous outro to these episodes because I could never think of anything, and it's always a massive letdown.
What a fucking
leave it to the professionals
ending.
there, Cuff.
I'll just fuck off from my entire house then.
Cut none of this out.